They say the mind is a powerful place, and this is very true when it comes to psychological warfare. Entire battles have been won due to paranoia, propaganda, and misinformation, and this was no secret for those who fought in the Vietnam War. Various units were set out to deceive and manipulate the thoughts of the enemy, such as MACV-SOG and Viet Cong guerrilla forces. Today, we will be looking at some of the psychological warfare operations that occurred during the Vietnam War. Ace of Spades. Attempting to play into Vietnamese superstition, US troops placed Ace of Spades cards in the mouths and on the bodies of dead Viet Cong soldiers. It was believed that Vietnamese tradition attributed the Ace of Spades to death and bad fortune. This belief was, in fact, wrong, as Vietnamese tradition said no such thing. However, the idea was popular enough amongst US troops that eventually custom decks were made with the only card being the Ace of Spades. Boxes on the decks were marked with the text "Bicycle Secret Weapon," and many were scattered in Vietnamese villages and over dead bodies. Even though the Viet Cong were not fearful of the symbol, it helped to boost the morale of US troops, making them more effective in combat. Safe conduct. The Vietnam War was filled with many gruesome and horrible battles and deaths, something that many soldiers feared. Attempting to play into those fears and doubts, Allied forces during the war developed many leaflets that granted safe conduct to those who sought it. The leaflets sought to encourage Viet Cong soldiers to defect, giving them reassurance that they would be treated well and, most importantly, not killed. These leaflets were then dropped from helicopters over Viet Cong dugouts and villages and were printed in multiple languages for the largest amount of availability. Over 50 billion safety conduct leaflets were dropped over the country, and at its peak, 1 billion leaflets were printed a month. In the end, over 160,000 enemy soldiers defected during the war. Project Elder's Son. Project Elder's Son was a secret operation conducted by the legendary MACV-SOG unit. The purpose of the operation was to place tampered explosive rounds in enemy ammo supplies. The operation placed over 11,500 faulty 7.60 by 39mm cartridges, 500 plus 12.7 by 108mm heavy machine gun cartridges, and almost 2,000 82mm type 67 mortar shells and ammo supplies. When these rounds were fired, they would explode within the weapon, injuring or even killing the person firing it. The main goal of the operation was to make troops unsure about the safety of their weapons. It also had the benefit of generating mistrust between NVA soldiers and their Chinese suppliers. MACV-SOG also forged documents reporting on the explosive ammunition, spreading misinformation and fear among enemy soldiers. Only a few tampered rounds were placed in boxes of ammo, but it was enough to have a psychological effect on the troops. US soldiers were told not to use enemy AKs due to their quote-unquote faulty metal quality, leaving out the real reason due to the operation being ongoing and top secret. While the operation was about halfway through, certain details were leaked to the press, causing the operation to be renamed to Italian Green and later Pole Bean. The project was then accelerated in order to finish it before more details had been leaked. After the NVA realized why bullets were faulty, there was still mistrust within the troops. Eventually, the operation was terminated after being a resounding success. Former MACV-SOG member, Major John L. Plaster, recalled the effect of the program in a quote saying, 101st Airborne Firebase was taking mortar fire when there was an odd boom-poof sound. A patrol later found 2 enemy bodies beside a split mortar tube and blood trails going off into the jungle. Punji Stick. Punji sticks were simple traps used by the Viet Cong to wound US troops. They consisted of sharpened sticks placed in a hole or ditch, with the pointed end facing upwards. The hole was then covered by twigs, leaves, and foliage, and when pressure was applied, the thin layer on top would give in, forcing whatever had been on top of it onto the spikes. US troops often stood on these traps and received injuries, allowing the Viet Cong to ambush them when vulnerable. Punji sticks were often coated in feces and poison, causing infection to possibly happen, needing immediate medical evacuation to treat. Punji sticks proved very effective, wounding many soldiers and giving paranoia to many more. There was such a problem that in 1966, the US Army designed jungle boots with stainless steel layers on the sole to prevent these types of foot injuries. From then on, foot injuries were less common, but other traps that focused on different areas in the body were used more. Operation Wandering Soul. It was well known to the United States military that the Vietnamese were superstitious about the dead. Vietnamese culture entails various rituals and burials for the dead. It is said that if the dead isn't buried right, then their soul will aimlessly wander the earth. This then led to Operation Wandering Soul, a propaganda program playing into these beliefs to manipulate NVA soldiers. The US military took a few weeks developing recordings, featuring distorted vocals and odd sounds. The recordings portrayed a conversation between a dead NVA soldier and their comrades. The NVA soldier was warning his fellow soldiers to defect, saying phrases such as, "I am in hell, just hell," and "Go home my friends, before it is too late." Units were deployed with loudspeakers to play the recording deep in the jungle near enemy camps. The operation received moderate success, with it being successful when the enemy didn't know it was a recording. If the enemy did realize it was a recording, they would shoot at the direction the sound was coming from, revealing US positions. Eventually, the operation was ended in the early 70s.
Bà đang về với con. Tôi đã về với mình đây. Nhưng tôi còn có hơi mắn ngân hàng nữa. Tôi đã chết rồi má con bây giờ. Tôi thẳng không phần nào.
What did you think of the video? Were there any psychological operations that you think we missed? Be sure to like and subscribe for more.